enlightened without us. That says something important about us. And maybe with that the combination, more people can readily achieve enlightenment. Do you understand? I'm not saying this is the way it's going to go. I'm saying this is a small possibility of how it could go.
Yeah, just on the point of the research of using LLMs and your critical thinking declining, there's definitely a counter movement to, given that research has come out, there's a counter movement to that.
Yes.
That I've been looking into, and there's like finding what, so having built lots and lots of software, there was processes we realized that if we followed the process, we could more reliably come out with software that had less bugs and did the things we expected them to do, whilst aligning with our model of what it was.
Yeah.
Right, and it seems like we're exacting that now into the LLM world, where instead of this ambiguous, long, questioning sort of statements where you know, and it spews you a nice long output which seems convincing and nice, and I'll just take that, and that's the low energy state going on there.
Yeah.
Instead, you're using a much more structured, incremental approach to kind of get it to rationalize, to explain, self-explain, and kind of show it's working out in the math, you know, from the math world. You remember at school, show
That's
it
right.
working out.
And I think, I think that's the right move, and I think that move is actually dependent on the argument I made. Right? If we want these machines to be good at explaining and good at teaching, that's more than just good propositional inferential manipulation. Right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah.
The other thing I agree with what Aidan just said, but then I give my response. But so I think it was it you, Jason, who asked me the difference between a cognitive prosthetic and indwelling it? Yeah, and this you could do what Aidan. So, for example, back to Sunday Labs, it's called Agni. I won't tell you what the acronym stands for. So Agni can be recording all your conversations, and that's okay because you have absolute privacy. Right? There's no big brother. Now, originally, some of my colleagues in the fellowship were, hey, what we'll do is we'll create a Dory. You know what Dory is? The opposite of Dory. So you're having a fight with your beloved, and human beings do this thing which is really stupid. They get into a memory accuracy argument. I remember it like this. Now it was like this. And what the data shows is you're almost always both wrong. But that's not how the fight goes. The fight is, because memory doesn't track accuracy, it tracks meaningfulness. So you're very confident about what you found meaningful in the memory. So we thought, what we could do is, like, you could just ask Dory, hey, what did I actually say to my wife? And Dory would read it out. You might want that, right? What did I actually say here? What did I actually say to the police officer? There's a problem with that, though, because if you do that, you're going to actually start to degrade working memory. So what we're trying to do, and this lines up with what Aidan said, is we're trying to get it, when you're trying to figure out something, it won't just give you the answer. It will try and prompt things around it. So you have to find it. By the way, you should so counterbalance your phones in this way, by the way. If you're getting a memory block and you can't remember something, don't immediately look it up. Try thinking around it a lot, and then, like, so we're trying to tickle people's memories as opposed to just feed it. Because we're trying to avoid the textbook problem. Okay, so what's going on right now is, and I see videos and they just give me chills. Like, you don't have to read any books anymore. Our AI reads the book for you and summarizes it for you. It's like, I don't want the conclusion of a book. I don't want this. I want to go through all the transformations. I want to acquire the skills, take on the states of mind, have my character traits challenged, have my identity put in question. I'm not getting any of that. You're just giving me the summary. And so you know what I mean by the textbook problem? But we don't want that. We're trying to figure, and that goes towards what you're saying too.
Yeah, definitely. yeah, I'm going to hand it back.
Okay, yes,
Can you take us away from AI for a minute?
of course you can.
At lunch, Mary had asked you about what you saw as a natural continuation of what we were doing here,
Yes,
and you had answered about kind of decentralized communities, but they were connected somehow.
yeah,
Similar to your concept about the decentralized LLMs.
yeah,
And then you referenced early Christianity and
Yes.
how they did that. So I have very little information on early Christianity from a historical context. So I'm just wondering if you can explain the historical context behind what they did, the formation of that new religion, and then
yeah.
relate that to the present.
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, so the slogan for this is, I don't want the French Revolution, I want the Axial Revolution. We keep trying the French Revolution and it turns out to be a bad idea. This country lives in the one exception, a revolution that seemed to have worked. All the other ones have been sort of bad. The French Revolution was really bad. But the Axial Revolution, which is a cultural revolution, was very profound and very generative. Gave birth to a whole new way of being human, a whole new way of having civilization. I'm not saying it was perfect or anything like that, but it was generative. So, if you want a cultural revolution rather than a political socioeconomic revolution, now I'm not foolish enough to think they're distinct. I'm talking about where does it start. That's all I'm talking about. So if you look in Christianity is actually persecuted, so it was officially excluded from the political, socioeconomic infrastructure machinery. Now, of course, it was ambiguous. You get away from Rome, and it's a lot more murky and blah 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 blah. So I'm talking a little bit about an idealization, but nevertheless, that's the case. And we know that regularly and reliably, the leaders of the church get caught, they get martyred, they get tortured, etc. So what Christianity did was it had small. They didn't meet in churches for a very long time. It was too dangerous, and they very quickly got excluded from the synagogues. So what they did is they would meet in individual homes. What's interesting is Jordan Hall. That's the kind of Christianity he's converted into. So they met in individual homes, right? And then they were cultivating this new way of life, agape. It's a new way of being human. Because agape turns non-cognitive, right, agents into cognitive agents, and then into autobiographical selves, and then into moral persons. That's what agape does. And so they were basically, you can come here and there'll be a home in the new sense that this is a place where all the non-persons of the Roman Empire will be turned into persons. And then, so there's a new way of life, it's in here, there's new practices, they're in homes, and then they network together under the radar as much as possible of the political social machinery. And then they grew and grew and grew and grew, and then they slowly started capturing, right, the infrastructure and the intelligentsia. And then, of course, you get the final attempt by the emperor to crush them. You get Constantine. You get a final attempt by Julian to bring back paganism, but he's bringing back a really refined Neoplatonic thing. But the point is, and this wasn't a total win. When Christianity integrates with the state, it starts to get twisted to some degree. But what happened is the civilization was overturned. And now the thing is, that didn't save the Roman Empire. Well, it didn't save the rest of Western Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire, it actually saves it. But the Western Roman Empire collapses, but Christianity lays the groundwork for the new culture, the new civilization that's going to superseded the collapse. That's the kind of thing I'm modeling on. So this is like one of those early Christian homes.
Why were they being persecuted?
For a bunch of reasons. So, in contrary to a lot of legend, the empire was persecuting a bunch of groups. It also was killing Gnostics and other people. Basically, anybody who refused, there's two reasons. Christians refused to sacrifice to the emperor or to the city gods. that's a big deal. The other thing is, the Romans had made a distinction between religion and superstition. It's where we get this distinction from. And the defining feature of religion is that it has a long-standing heritage. So they never accused the Jews of superstition. But Christianity was like, 40, 50, 100 years, oh, that's a superstition. And superstition should be eradicated. This was a Roman. So they don't buy into the empire, they don't support the emperor, and they're a superstition. Well, that's really dangerous, we need to kill them. That's why. It's ironic to my ears when Christians sort of shit on newly emerging religions. It's just a cult. It's just well, maybe, but how did you start? Like, you're doing what was done to you. You're saying, well, it's young, so it must be illegitimate. That wasn't a good argument against you. You shouldn't wield it against others. Anyways.
Yes, thank you.